All right, finishing on part 3, final part here. Several of the old guard TV/financial presenters are indicated to be checking out/dying in unexpected ways. These will include at least 3 visible deaths that will be captured on video. The data sets are indicating that in one instance, the video was designed as an intrinsic part of the suicide. Note that not all of these checking out things, and he says, additional note, the language deliberately has been chosen here, so pay attention as we dare not say more. But he says, so checking out/dying is deliberately chosen. Checking out. Does that have something to do with the hotel? Don't know, but we'll find out. So this video, at least 3 instances, one in which the data sets are indicating that in one instance, the video was designed as an intrinsic part of the suicide. Note that not all of these checking out incidents will be willing. As model spaces move through fall and into winter, Northern Hemisphere, the data sets are forecasting a rise in the conjunction of military and accidents that will impact the markets. This conjunction of set itself is affected by agitation propaganda, which is being called he's calling it agit-prop. So agitation propaganda, short for agit-prop is short for that. As the situation matures in the 2014, these data sets are forecast in late winter and do not extend past April. The changes/shift forecast for April 2014 in a number of areas also included military power, such that globally a different form/type of paradigm is shown to emerge. Additional note, the emerge word is supported by language suggesting it has been maturing in the shadows. The language forecast to arise around the new military paradigm is also forecast to dramatically affect/change the financial world as well. The data sets are showing that agit-prop, which is agitation propaganda, to develop into whipped frenzy almost simultaneous with the crumbling of the foundations of corruption. The number of links over to the Federal Reserve Mafia/banksters is dominating and suggestive of a very severe crises of existence over these next first 4 to 6 months of 2014. Again, I know it says dates. Sure, it could happen right then, but it may not be till 2015. There's really no telling. As the criminal gang that is the Fed fights for its survival, the data sets are indicating that a great many banksters will not survive. Not only are there indications of formal trials and execution/imprisonments in some countries, but also many linguistic sets that are going to private revenge/settlement of personal debts of honor. There are also instances, much smaller in number, of vigilante mob violence against banksters and political minions. Though much more rare, the vigilantes acting out will be receiving much more coverage in the media. The bankster wars are also described as including political assassinations that are curiously described as having deeper meanings than what appears on the surface. The data sets would seem to be indicating via crosslinks that the breakaway civilization will be using the general global financial/political chaos to fix its problems of skimming minions? ?
I need to tell you something.
Alright, little Ashley wants to play Minecraft with Daddy. So, we're going to play Minecraft after I'm done with this video here in a second. Okay, so, vigilantes, bankster wars, where were we at here? Indicating a great many banksters will not survive. Not only are there indications of formal trials and executions, imprisonments in some countries, but also many linguistic sets that are going to private revenge/settlement of personal debts of honor. There are also instances, much smaller number, of vigilante mob violence against banksters and political minions. Though much more rare, the vigilantes acting out will be receiving much more coverage in the media. The bankster wars are also described as including political assassinations that are curiously described as having deeper meanings than what appears on the surface. The datasets would seem to be indicating via crosslinks that the breakaway civilization will be using the general global financial political chaos to fix its problems of skimming minions ? The datasets have a clear accretion pattern that shows as model space is moved past mid-November. In this pattern, a set that is headed by energy, that includes energy from space, is shown as shifting power over to the Army. This area of the global populace entity is focused on North America. These datasets could be interpreted as suggesting an event, additional note, false or not, that is energy-focused, grid downs possibly, and that would lead to power, social power, political power, or literally power, being shifted over to the Army. The energy sets are supported by energies from space and unrestrained and primal. These sets may be interpreted as suggestive of an actual event from space, but equally could be pointing toward the reason that will be pro-offered, sold by the minions if they take down the power grid as a population control mechanism. They'll blame it on outer space. It is important to remember that our process forecasts that language, is important to remember that our process forecasts the language that will be appearing in the future, not the events per se. It is also quite possible, given that huge amount of discussion about this on the internet, that we're getting some degree of conscious language bleed through to our interpretation stage right now, because there are people talking about the grids going down, and the IRS website said something about the grids going, power outage something. I read it. So it could be bleeding through to the interpretation stage of him on his Webbot report. This possibility is very small, he says, and thus the note above. This report is prepared to be released within days of this potential event, so the wait time will be minimal. This escalation of technology is described by the detail sets as being invasive to the point of causing seizures and mental disturbances that will last. This is, I think, another section where it talks about some kind of new propaganda tool that they're going to try to use through the TV or something. This escalation of technology is described by the detail sets as being invasive to the point of causing seizures and mental disturbances that will last/affect the victims for days/weeks. The data sets are suggesting that it will take a short time, possibly hours, just mere hours, after the first barrage of the mind seizure technology, before the world of humans is flooded with the knowledge suspicion that the mass seizure episode was caused by officialdom/government. The data sets indicate some level of the populations exposed to this technology will die as a result, though the deaths will be spread out over months, as the various systems damaged in the body/brain are revealed. Again, we note that this is a temporal marker for much larger changes that will result from the spread of the knowledge of the attack. The datasets are indicating that the escalation of mind control technology is an act of desperation by the minions, and actually will be a very good temporal marker for the loss of control by the political class/officialdom within the developed world, USA/EU. The datasets are indicating that this unleashing of the aggressive mind control technology will result in the executions of many of the officialdom class as the populace becomes aware of the crime against them and sets about taking revenge for destroyed family members, many of whom are indicated to be children and mentally impaired/damaged for the rest of their life. As a side effect, this episode will bring about the control of television/media in new ways at the local level, and will further incite communities to rampage and destroy Gwen and cell towers across USA and EU. He says, shows a lot of work for fellows with rope and big-ass trucks. Again, the data has presented flood language within the market's sets and within the global populace entity in areas seemingly having nothing to do with water. We note that the financial system language subset of the global populace entity is boringly filled with repetition of flood language. While this may indeed be indicating a flood of currency, Federal Reserve notes, etc. creation, the aspects are also supporting interpretations for literally or not literally, but a flood of withdrawals and a flood of troubles and a flood of people within bank buildings. So people standing in line, runs on the bank. There's a lot of room there for that, but none of it would be what you'd want to see in any country. Again, I don't keep a whole bunch of money in the bank account, period. And that's a prime reason. So, a very significant subset of the bankster wars and wars against the banksters is built around the new alternative money system. These sets include a variety of references to alternatives to the US dollar. While there are very emotional weights associated with each of these new dollar alternatives, the main importance of the set as a whole is greater than the sum of its new currencies. The data set in total is expressing the certainty/certitude of a rise of a replacement system for the dollar, US dollar, it says. In the very near term, 4 to 6 months possibly, before/concurrent with summer solstice, this set has many references to precious metals and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and also includes gold certificates of exchange. Additional note, apparently made of gold-plated plastic paper, oil reserves, commodity banks/storehouses, resource reserves, and calories/foods consumables. Note that this set is not saying that officialdom will announce any form of new currency/financial reform. Rather, the depth of the details suggests that the financial system crumbles away, in spite of the outright denial of officialdom. Now, I'm going to stop and talk for a second, because Bitcoin started out at around $2 is what it cost, US dollars, to get a Bitcoin when it first came out. As of today, it was, I think, $360 roughly, $360, $370. $2 when it came out, it is now 300 and something, 60. This thing just said many references to precious metals, Bitcoin, and other cryptocurrencies, and also includes gold certificates of exchange. There's one other cryptocurrency that I think will benefit. It is currently being talked about as if it is the silver of the Bitcoin. So in other words, Bitcoin's gold, let's pretend. If Bitcoin's gold, then what's silver? And that is something called Litecoin, Litecoin, C-O-I-N. And just for giggles here, Litecoin charts. I just want to see where it's actually at right now. It's been around $2 and is now, latest trade, $3.74. So it has almost doubled. From $2 to $3.74, it has almost doubled. If Bitcoin's going to a lot higher than it is now, then Litecoin too is going a lot higher. And since Litecoin is only $3.74 per share, or however you plan on buying it, you may want to think about doing that just on a pure speculative basis, understanding that the price could crash, understanding that it is like betting on a stock, but also understanding that the stuff I'm reading you already know a lot of this. You already know what the countries are doing. You already see the money printing. You already see what they're doing with Bitcoin. It may be a little diamond in the rough right now. So that is something to think about. Definitely something to think about. This data set will be proven to be true not by any announcement, but only by our living and being aware of the changes as they are occurring. Everyone else will find out about it by reading it as history. The dominating identified trend within the alternative currency/financial system sets is one of experimentation. This data set includes support down to the details level for the idea of, quote, It can't be worse than the US dollar experience. The data sets have accrual patterns for international exchange of trade settlements as being a constraint upon the US dollar and the US Fed hegemony, as most of the nation states begin to decline to accept US dollars. That has been in an older Webbot report a few times. Okay. And as you know, reading it then, you may not have thought anything about it, but reading this again now, even though it said it years ago, and you see what's happening, you see what they're doing with the dollar, you see what China and the BRICS nations are doing, creating their own currency, the writing has been on the wall. So this is not going to be a lie. This is definitely going to happen. The decline of Federal Reserve dominance is shown as concurrent within model space for the evaporation of protection for U.S. minion politicos/banksters. The data sets are pointing to a group/cluster/series of assassinations in early 2014 as a sign of the breakdown of the criminal protection racket that is the Federal Reserve banker system. According to the data sets, a number, most possibly he says, of the assassinations will be sourced to disgruntled former/current criminal partners of the political minions. In one specific detail item, we look for temporal markers around we're looking for a temporal marker around revenge against the Iraqi dinar scam perpetrators, as annotating a key transition point for currencies and bankster wars. The data indicates that a brouhaha scuffle in a dinar scam office will erupt into the news media in such a way as to highlight the confidence component to paper currencies. Also, the episode should be interesting to view as much as I guess the bloody fighting within the office is apparently video captured and will be available at that time on various video outlets on the internet. I can't tell you how, this is not anytime recently, but I'm going to say in the last 3 years, how many people, subscribers and all, I've even been on a couple interviews on some online radio shows, and I remember one lady asked me about it then, and what she asked is the same thing I'm telling you happened in the last 3 years. A few people have asked me on YouTube, and that is, Joe, what do you think about the Iraqi dinar, man? That the dinars, it's you know, they gave me this big speech. It's gold backed. It's going to be this, and they're just waiting. It's going to take off. You can be rich. I said, but it's a paper currency, right? Yep, done. Don't touch it. Get away from it. It's a scam. That was my response. Don't know if they ever followed my advice. Never heard back from them. Don't know. But that was old J Stamp 4's advice. So when I see him writing this right now, in specific, being specific to the Iraqi dinar scandal, as he called it, lets me know, oh, J Stamp 4, your advice was good. You don't have to feel bad that you gave someone wrong advice. Once again, you gave someone good advice. Because that's what I try to do. No, I'm not perfect, but again, I try to. Try to read, research, be as close to perfect as you can, so that when I open my fat mouth, it makes sense, it's understandable, and it makes you think, hey, he's got a point, maybe I ought to do that. That's all I can ask for. So, from the viewpoint of the regular human here on Earth, this next year promises to be the most exciting in the last several hundreds, if not thousands of years. Noting that exciting is not necessarily conducive to either peace or ripe old age. The data, nonetheless, is explicitly promoting the idea of personal felt excitement for most humans over 2014. The excitement set is supported at the primary and secondary levels by unknown and unknown futures, respectively, which can be read as most of humanity will feel some level of excitement in 2014, good or bad, at the breakdown of the existence, order/structure, and the unknown nature of its replacement. This is the final couple paragraphs. As these sets accumulate within model space, there are descriptors for populous subgroups that indicate that many peoples, clans/communities, will be feeling left behind/caught out unaware. But the seeming suddenness of these very large, significant, and vast historical scale, vast changes, the data sets are pointing to these deep sheeple groups as acting out and behaving badly as their highly structured view of reality runs into rampaging change. This phenomena of group cognitive dissonance combining with rapid change to produce group hysteria, resulting in community reinforced reality, denying bad behavior, is found across the human planet. I don't know why it says human planet, but as the social/financial changes gain momentum in their multiple passages around the earth, so to speak. The data sets are painting pictures of isolated groups of immigrants and enclaves of socially isolated groups who will wake up to discover that the infrastructure that supported their life view of propaganda-inspired reality is gone forever. The riots and social confusion that results is described as both a cleansing of social barriers phenomena as well as an ongoing task at education during the Revolution/Renaissance. So there's these things he was calling self-organizing collectives, these groups that just kind of form and run with some new idea, world thinking, world view, whatever, social view, and run with it and do something. So the last paragraph, banning the SOCs, the social organizing collectives. This outspoken attempt to criminalize thought, so the powers that be are going to try to criminalize that activity, is described as a key temporal marker for both the crumbling of authority/officialdom as well as the initiation of the alternative. Within the cabal-controlled countries, aka the developed world, the data sets are pointing towards the rising of cessationist self-organizing collectives, people who want to break away from the corrupt U.S. government, keep the state separate, that kind of a movement. The cessationist SOCs are described in 2014 as moving apart and building communities. These communities are further described in the detailed layers as being anti-officialdom, even to the point of a new form of announced social contract/stance being evident in the USA and EU over 2014, in which these SOCs/groups will post bans on properties, lands, buildings, cities, blocks, in which officialdom will be placed on notice that they are out of their jurisdiction, etc. At one level, the secessionist self-organizing collectives and their posting of the ban notices will also be a temporal marker for the next phase of this trend, as in late 2014, the self-organizing collectives will come together across the planet in what is described as the Great Meeting. The data about the Great Meeting describes a multi-week effort of work in which diverse peoples across the planet use technology, I'm assuming Skype, internet, I'm not sure, to seek common ground around officialdom. That is my summary. The Webbot report has 33 pages. I didn't read anywhere near that. But this is the most important stuff that I felt you should know. So with that being said, this is part 3. It's the final part. That's the end. Take it in, remember it, and if you ever catch something that just happens that was in this report, I may have caught it too, but I study and read and do videos so frequently that a lot of what I just read you may go out my brain and I might forget about some of it. If you catch something, don't just make a comment in YouTube. Try to contact me. Go to realistnews.net, contact me there just by hitting the contact button, or physically go into YouTube, contact JasonIp4, send him a message, private message, so I always check my private messages. I don't always look at comments, but I always check my private messages. And say, Joe, I think this just happened, the Webbot report, blah, 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 and tell me. That way, if it did happen, I can do a video to let everyone know, hey, such and such just happened. That's it, and take care.